sentence according to structure. There are three different types of sentences according to structure, and they are simple, complex, and compound. A simple sentence is consistent with a main clause or a principal clause, where a complex sentence is consistent with one main clause and one or more subordinate clauses, while compound sentence has two or more main clauses which are joined by conjunctions. Let's see the characteristics of these three different types of sentences. A simple sentence has only one subject and one finite verb, and there could be one or more non-finite verbs or other phrases, which is optional. And the characteristics of complex sentence are it should have at least two clauses, one main clause and one subordinate clause. And it should at least have two finite verbs with two subjects, which should be connected with when, which, what, that, before, after, if, these kind of connectors. And a compound sentence should have two or more main clauses, and they should be joined with conjunctions, for example, and, or, but, either or, neither nor. To remember these conjunctions, you can remember the term fanboys. So now let's see how a sentence changes from simple, complex to compound. A simple sentence, for example, I am sure of my success. If we want to change it into a complex, we need to break down this sentence into two clauses, where we cannot break the main clause, which is I am sure. We need to keep it as it is, and the rest of the words should be turned into some other way and into a subordinate clause, and it will become I am sure that I will be successful. And while if we want to change it into compound sentence, we need to make two main clauses and one conjunction, and the main clauses should be in this way: I will be successful and I am sure of it. Now question may arise, what are main clauses or subordinate clauses, and what are finite and non-finite verbs? Now let's move on to that chapter. Clause. Clause is nothing but a sentence. It has a subject and a verb. Then why do we call a sentence a clause? Well, long sentences like complex or compounds have two or more clauses in them. So when there are more than one sentences in a long sentence, those tiny little sentences are called clauses. Clauses are of two types: main clause or principal clause and subordinate clause. A main clause has one subject and a finite verb, and it expresses a completed thought. For example, we work very hard. Here, we is the subject and work is the finite verb, and they together express a completed thought. Well, a subordinate clause also have a subject, but it has a non-finite verb, and they doesn't express a completed thought, and it's always a part of another sentence. For example, while I was walking in the garden. This portion of the sentence is a subordinate clause because it doesn't express a completed sense. It needs help. When we add I saw a bird, then it can complete its sense. So, a subordinate clause is always a part of another sentence, and it needs the help of a main clause to express its total meaning. Students, we often use these two terms, finite and non-finite verb, and you have also heard these two terms in this video earlier. What are they? There are actually two types of verbs. One is finite and another one is non-finite. What is a finite verb? A finite verb is an action. For example, we go to school every day. Here, go is a verb and it's an action. It helps to complete a thought. Yes, we go. Here, nothing sounds incomplete. It is a completed thought. It has a limited agreement with the subject, which means it works or it changes according to the subject. It changes according to tense, person, and number. If the tense of the sentence changes, the form of the verb also changes. This is the way how we could recognize a finite verb. For example, Abraham works in a bookstall to earn some extra cash. Here, Abraham is our subject. If I change Abraham into I, then the verb would change. For example, I work in a bookstall to earn some extra cash. So the verb which changes along with the tense, person, and number, then those are called finite verbs. Non-finite verb. A non-finite verb is not an action, rather it's an expression. It does not perform any action in the sentence. It doesn't have any agreement with the subject, which means it doesn't matter if the subject changes. It is used as noun, adjective, and adverb in a sentence. They are actually usually known as participles, gerund, and infinitives. Doesn't change according to the number, person, or tense. Let's see. We read to learn. If I change the subject of this sentence, we, as he, then let's see whether the non-finite verb changes or not. He reads to learn. If I use instead of we, he changes the verb read into reads, but to learn doesn't bother. So the verb which doesn't change according to tense, subject, or number, then they are non-finite verbs.